Hey, do you like video games? Have you ever been given a bootleg cartridge thinking that you're getting a masterpiece of a game, but then it turns out to be the same platformer your mom got you last Christmas just with different sprites? Or maybe you just own an official game that was just dumped onto an extra disc your best friend had lying around. No matter what you do, there's always going to be someone out there making bootlegs of something. Whether it's to cash in on someone else's hard work just by throwing together some crap and slapping a recognizable brand on it, or just because you're a no-name developer who can't get the rights to publish something on someone else's platform. You'll get that software development kit from Nintendo eventually, Robert Poloni. I believe in you. I think bootleg games are pretty funny to look into, because for every 100 pieces of garbage you find, there's always at least one game that'll be silly enough to look into. And that's what I want to go over in this video, just taking a look at bootleg games. Some of them you've probably heard of, some of them aren't even available to the public. But they all have one thing in common. They probably aren't very legal when it comes to copyright laws. Hong Kong 97 is quite an infamous game among those who spend too much time on the internet, and it's pretty easy to see why. Hong Kong 97 is a game developed for the Super Famicom by Happysoft in 1995. The gameplay might be some of the simplest you've ever seen in your life, even for its time. You dodge, and you shoot. Sounds easy, right? Well, yeah. Except for the fact that it's really frickin' hard. There's three things this game is mostly known for. First, as I just mentioned, is its difficulty. The game is pretty hard even once you get used to it. Second is your reward for killing enemies and dying. If you choose to kill any enemies while playing, or god forbid you touch one of them and lose, the developers were kind enough to flash you with pictures of an actual corpse from the 1992 Bosnian War. You know, as encouragement to not die. Third and lastly, probably the best part about this game is the OST. Yep, that's it. Hong Kong 97 has a total of one song, and it's the same 5-second loop that goes on forever, and forever, and forever. Well, at least until you get 1.2 million kills without dying, because at that point the music just shuts off. This game is almost agreed upon by everyone to be one of the worst games ever made. And if you have eyes, you probably share that sentiment. And it seems like even the developer agrees. In an interview, the developer, Kowloon Kurosawa, stated that he wanted to make the game as awful as possible as a mockery of the gaming industry. With some help from others, including a developer from Enix Games, he was able to complete the game in a total of 2 days, which, looking at it, yeah, that tracks. Apparently a few people actually bought this game from the guy for about $20-ish in yen. Which, god damn it, why wasn't I born in the 1970s? I would have definitely spent my money on a floppy disk for a ROM I would never have time to dump onto a cartridge, because I'm living in Japan working a dead-end office job from dusk till dawn. Jokes aside, there's plenty of options you could choose from if you really want to play this game. Since 2023, you could freely download the ROM for Hong Kong 97 off of the developer's website, sixamana.com. Am I saying that right? sixamana.com. Or you could just do the same thing, but off of the Internet Archive. Hong Kong 97 is cool and all, but there's actually a little bit more to the story than just Hong Kong 97 itself. Did you know that this game has its own bootleg? Taiwan 2001, if it wasn't obvious just based off the name, is a knockoff of Hong Kong 97. And if that's not interesting enough to you, then just give me a second, let me say the magic words for you. This game was lost media. Up until about 2 years ago, that is. Taiwan 2001 is very similar to Hong Kong 97, and was intended to be even worse than the original game. At least in terms of quality, that is. Taiwan 2001 doesn't use actual dead bodies, but it does still use a pretty unsettling image of what looks to be a CPR dummy in place of Hong Kong 97's choice of imagery. The game also just looks even worse than Hong Kong 97. Like, they couldn't even get rid of the green background for the sprites, so you just see constant green rectangles moving around behind the sprites. If you thought that maybe you would at least get something mind-numbing enough to listen to, then you'd be wrong. Because the beautiful 5-second loop of is replaced by this. I mean, hey, it's good enough to get a Siva Gunner rip, so who am I to judge? There's not much else to say about Taiwan 2001. Actually, that's not true. The game was developed by quote-unquote company Kusosoft, which might not even actually exist. So if you know what that translates to, there's an extra funny for you. Other than that, this game is just Hong Kong 97 without the snuff footage and without the amazing 5-second loop. If Hong Kong 97 is so bad it's good, Taiwan 2001 is so bad that it's bad. BMB Games is a company that produced a bunch of bootleg games for specifically the Sega Mega Drive. There's a couple that you might know that I'll mention in a minute. Most of the games quote-unquote produced by BMB are either platformers that use nothing but stolen assets, or are just shitty Russian translations of already existing games, usually with some added stolen assets thrown in for good measure. If you're gonna recognize any of their games, it'll most definitely either be Mario 3 Around the World or the much more popular Felix the Cat port, thanks to a certain scene. Outside of all the platformers, what I find most interesting, well, as interesting as these shitty low-quality games could get, is the few games made by BMB that aren't either ports or platformers. BMB has only made a few of these games, as it's much easier to just steal someone else's entire game, or just design a handful of platformer levels. But they have at least made an attempt at doing so. They've made a total of 2 beat-em-up games and a total of 2 puzzle games. None of them are anything original, so don't set your standards too high. Ben 10 and TMNT The Legend Returns are both beat-em-up games, and they are near identical to each other. Both of these games use the same engine and have near identical soundtracks. Neither of them are very exciting beat-em-up games either, as the enemy AI is very limited, and it could only handle a maximum of 2 whole enemies on screen at once. Okay, so this part contains misinformation. After I typed up this whole part of the script, I learned that the Ben 10 game is actually another shitty port of a different Ben 10 game that was playable on Java 2 mobile devices called Ben 10 The Power of Omnitrix, which is much more complete than the version created by BMB, as the enemy AI actually functions, and you have the ability to transform into a handful of aliens from the show. So there's no real point in playing the version created by BMB Games outside of the novelty factor, which isn't even that great anyways. This also means that TMNT The Legend Returns falls under the other category of just a copied game with stolen assets, but it's not really surprising when you think about it. As for the puzzle games, however, well, they're still shitty unoriginal games, and I guess you could technically consider both of them ports, but they play so differently from what they're based off of that I really don't think they deserve to be considered ports. Angry Birds in Russia and Plants vs. Zombies are exactly what you think they are, and I doubt I even have to explain the gameplay, as it's the same exact loop as the games they're based off of. Where they start to differ wildly though is in the little details. As for Plants vs. Zombies, I guess it could just be seen as limitations, as maybe the developers just didn't have the software to create more than 3 zombies and like 5 plants. But for Angry Birds in Russia, it's like they didn't even try playing the game, both their bootleg version and the original. The gravity is almost non-existent, with even the slightest angle with minimal power sends your birds flying into the stratosphere. None of the birds have their iconic signature abilities either. They're literally just clones of each other with different sprites. Once again, this is to be expected though, as every BMB game is about this level of quality. I mean, in a good chunk of their platformer games, you can't even change your trajectory after jumping, which makes jumping feel like total garbage. At least their most popular bootleg, Felix the Cat, doesn't have that issue. Except it doesn't even count, because the game wasn't even made by BMB Games. It was stolen from Shimada Kikaku, the creator of Felix the Cat for the NES. However, the one change that BMB made to the game, outside of changing the music, is what everyone knows them for. Just like Hong Kong 97, losing the game rewards you with the wonderful sight of Felix tearing his face off. Isn't that lovely? This game over screen is actually taken from a design someone made to print onto t-shirts. So not only did they take someone's whole game, someone else's music, but they also took someone's design and became much more popular off of it thanks to a certain mushroom streamer. Speaking of Joel, no bootleg game discussion would be complete without mentioning this game, as it's probably one of the most popular bootlegs among internet culture. You've probably heard everything about this already, and I'm done talking about BMB Games, so if you want to, just skip to this timestamp. 7 Grandad is a hack of the Flintstones, the rescue of Dino and Hoppy, and it immediately makes itself known to not be a legitimate game for the Famicom. The title screen greets you with this beautiful sprite that was modified from another bootleg game called
电视玛丽
or TV Mari, or Big TV Mary Bar. This lovely man, who looks a little bit too much like a Nintendo icon, goes by the name Fortran. The modified version of the sprite in 7 Grandad resembles a miscolored Mario with a star containing Fred Flintstone next to his head. But this game isn't about either of those people. This is about Grandad. The gameplay is pretty much exactly the same as the game it's a hack of, except that when you're in a level, Fred Flintstone's head is replaced with Mario's, with the sprite being unchanged everywhere else, pretty much. That's it. 7 Grandad is well regarded, mostly just because Joel Vinesauce had a pretty funny reaction to it. I mean, I think it's pretty funny, and so does everyone who has kept up with this channel for the past 9 years. But outside of that, it's just a Flintstones game with Mario's head edited on top of Fred's, and with a beautiful title screen. This one will be pretty quick, as it's another one of those that's pretty much just changing sprites. SpongeBob SquarePants, if you could even call this thing SpongeBob, is a hack of Cool Spot, specifically the European version, which has none of the advertising. Similarly to 7 Grandad, all that's really changed here is the sprites. But differently than 7 Grandad, this hack was translated into Russian, and half of the levels from the original game are just missing, unless you activate the debug menu code. But if you're just playing normally, you get a total of 5 levels with SpongeBob SquarePants. Stupid hack, they couldn't even get SpongeBob right for a 20-minute long game. It even has a region lock screen, so I can't even play it on official hardware unless I buy a Russian Mega Drive.
It's gonna be a little awkward telling my boss. Yeah, sorry, my computer runs on Nintendo. Oh, that's great. You'll get the job.
Well, my Nintendo runs on Windows. At least it kind of does. Obviously, ports of Windows OS aren't gonna turn your NES into an actual computer. This thing can't even connect to the internet. How am I supposed to search for do hours worth of research for my videos for my audience's viewing pleasure? There's 3 different versions of Windows that have been ported to the NES, with one of them being made by Bei Tongfang, one of them being by Bravesoft, and another one where we aren't exactly sure who made it. It's not exactly available to everyone, but it's probably just one of those 2 again. The Windows 98 port isn't too much to write home about. Actually, none of these ports are. It's genuinely less hassle to set up a virtual machine than it would be to use these bootlegs, or even just buy an actual computer. At least those can use the internet and aren't stuck to the handful of programs all of these come with. Windows 98 on the NES has all the necessities you would ever need in a computer, as it comes with various programs like Winamp, Windows Media Player, and on-screen keyboard, which is actually pretty useful because this port doesn't have keyboard support. Whatever this is, Outlook, a piano app that doesn't work because, once again, you can't use a keyboard. And finally, good old Internet Explorer, which doesn't actually let you explore the internet. You didn't think it would, did you? Windows XP for the NES is lost media, as it hasn't been dumped online whatsoever. And the last known bit of activity around this port was when a copy of it was sold on eBay in 2013. The only proof we have of this port's existence is a handful of pictures taken of it running, and the cartridge it came in. Outside of that, we have pretty much nothing. no one to contact, no ROM archived online, and no confirmed developer. Although with how similar it appears to be to the 98 port, it very may well be Beitongfang. The last of the ports, which is Windows 2000, is somehow even less than both of the ports I just talked about. At least with the 98 port, the programs worked to an extent, and we've seen programs run on the XP port. A bunch of the programs on the Windows 2000 port don't actually do anything, and instead just tell you what they would do on an actual computer. Like, what the hell am I supposed to do with this? Am I just supposed to imagine it? Well, I guess I can't get too mad at Bravesoft though, as it might just be to help teach people how to use a computer without buying a whole computer. Even if that doesn't make any sense at all because it's just more money spent in the long run. One of the many different versions of this port, yes, there are multiple versions of Windows 2000 developed by Bravesoft, is known as Subor Win 2000. Subor is a company that makes educational computers, or Famiclones if you will. Just based off of this alone, I believe it's pretty clear that this port of Windows 2000 was just a way to make some quick money off of people who don't know how to use a computer. Some other versions of this port, including Subor Win 2000, do have extra programs included, like Subor Win having Minesweeper, but most of them just change the title screen. These bootlegs suck, and it's genuinely easier to learn how to use a computer by just buying one, but I hope the Windows XP port gets dumped online someday, even if it's just as shitty as the others. Sintax is yet another company that made a bunch of bootleg platformer games that are just all clones of each other. They're nothing special in that regard. What I do find interesting though is just how many games they've managed to shit out. The true number of games isn't even known, as some of them are released and credited under a different alias, or we just don't have any proof of them actually existing. This company has published everything from run and gun platformers to Mario Kart knockoffs, and even bootlegs of their own bootlegs. Here's what I'm gonna do, as I can't possibly pick out any shit from this pile. I mean, they're all as equally as shit as each other. So I'm just gonna read off the names of each bootleg that is documented on this wiki page. If any of them interest you, even though they probably shouldn't, then pause the video and check them out. Ready? Here we go. Super Robot War X. The 2nd edition Harry Boy, The Secrets of the Chamber of Secrets. True Three Kingdoms. Little Taichi, The Adventure of Myth. Donkey Kong 5, The Journey of Over Time and Space. Adventure Digimon 7, 2002. King of Ring. Shaolin Legend, Hero, The Saver. Star War Episode 2. Battle Among Cloned Humans. True Three Kingdoms 2. 2003 Digimon Sapphire. 2003 Pocket Monster Carbuncle. Space Baby.
哈利波特2小时的秘密，哈利小史爱你，
Pocket Monster Sapphire.
古火狼3，射条英雄传，
Final Fantasy X2. 2003 King Lion Advance 3. Spirit King 3.
新17时代，老夫子传奇，骑龙珠 Z3， 外星探险之星球大展，摩登老夫子传奇，越南展移冲剑天日，
Ice Age 2. 2003 Crash 2 Advanced.
海战骑兵，
Digimon 9. Hulk. Crystal Age. Mattel Gear 2.
合金单掏2，神鬼帝国之恶魔城，
Zook Hero 3. Castlevania DX. Tom and Jerry. Pokemon Fire Red.
魔界战士传说，
Pokemon Leaf Green. Ultraman.
越南展1、2，
Metal Slug 3. Super 2 Sonic.
洛克英雄 EX15， 异星 VS 铁血战士，
Pokemon Platinum. Pokemon Emerald.
新疯狂阿得泡泡汤，
Doraemon.
魔手世纪战神，
The Incredibles.
口袋妖怪重击，勇者斗恶龙8，
Pokemon Pearl.
口袋妖怪 XB 安之飓风，天外章黄金太阳风赢得远古炼金术，
Metal Slug X Behind Enemy Lines,
凤至沟，风之沟2，歌斗江山为我独尊。
Pokemon D9,
007水与正风，绝对武力。
Digimon Crystal Version 2, Langrisser 2,
光明与黑暗诸神的一缠。
Movie Version Spider-Man 3 for the Game Boy Color,
终结者2朝得空战士。
Dynasty Warriors Advance 5, Digimon Amethyst, Super Mario Sunshine spelled with 2 R's, Super Robot Tizen R, Digimon Yellow Jade, Digimon Adventure, 007 Mori Weiji, Mario Kart spelled with a C,
口袋妖怪之红蓝对决。
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, Sonic 3 Fighter Sonic, Harry Potter 4, Mario DX, Aladdin 2, Rayman 4, Crash Advance 4, The Lord of the Rings 4, The Fellowship of the Ring, Ultraman, Confrontation Between Justice and Evil, Shrek Prezesin, X-Man, Armor of Might, Digimon Rudy and Sapphire, Donkey Kong 2, Hulk 2, The Lion King 2, Movie Version Spider-Man 3 for the Game Boy Advance, Crash Bandicoot 3, Warped, Super Contra 7, Isolated Force Sortie, Star War 4, Warrior Revenge, Metroid Fusion 2, Crisis Once More, Disney Cart, an ebook of 1001 Nights, this game player, this MP4 and game player, this MP4 game player and camera, and these 3 different car radios. Okay, I hope that didn't stretch the video too much. Ah, fuck. Okay, so hopefully this proves the point that everything was created by Sintax and all of our favorite series were thought up by this one company. Like, I used to love me some
外星探险之星球大战。
back in the day. So learning that it's from the same company that owns the rights to Metal Slug and Star War was really a shock to me. But yeah, the majority of these games are just copies of each other, so don't get your hopes up for any of these. Okay, now, all of these companies and games are great and all. I mean, pretty useless to even know about in retrospect, but who cares? There's one bootleg game that truly stands above the rest of them, however. One bootleg game that deserves the title of greatest of all time. Above 7 Grandad, above Hong Kong 97, above Felix the Cat, and definitely above anything produced by BMB Games or Sintax. It would honestly be a disservice if I didn't recognize it for all of its amazing features, such as moving to the left and moving to the right. Crazy Bus. Holy shit, this is amazing!
And now I depart.